think what's interesting is if you look at how the Hindu right wing ideology has shaped up and Hindutva has shaped up, they've always believed that caste is a thing that only divides Hindus even further, right? So the enemies, even if you go back to Savarkar's writing, for instance, or Golwarkar's writings, the enemies are very, very clear. The enemies are often Muslims or Christians. So the threat is external, and the response to it, according to their books and according to their thoughts, is that Hindus have to be united, cutting across caste lines. So the idea within the Hindu right wing has always been to try and invisibilize some of these caste lines that exist, and as a result, sort of continuously project a homogeneous Hindu identity. This is also what the three Hindutva pop stars that I talk about in my book are also doing. They refuse to reveal their caste to me. They refuse to engage on conversations around caste because they believe that there is only one identity which is important, and that is the Hindu identity. But the issue here is that even within the Hindutva bracket, caste remains a very, very important part of it, right? The traditional Hindutva thinkers, including Golwalkar, including some of the others, have traditionally spoken of the Varna system as the right system to divide and as the right system of organization of society. So caste remains a very integral part of the Hindutva thought, but for its rhetoric around Muslims, around Christians, and around other enemies, it has to constantly close its ranks and present a united face. So while at one point they will insist that caste as a concept doesn't exist and that the Hindu society has to be casteless, deep down they continuously believe that caste remains sort of the primary segregational point in the Hindu religion and Hindu society. So Hindutva has always remained a very masculine space and a very male-dominated space there. So where you see that it's only men who are in leadership positions, while females might be there, might be followers, might even be some prominent faces. They'll never really rise up to the sort of top leadership position that there is in the Hindu right-wing ecosystem. So gender has a very interesting intersection when it comes to Hindutva. One of the reasons why I was attracted to the character of Kabir Singh, who is this female singer and who I profiled extensively, and who extensively looks at Hindutva songs and Hindutva music as her medium. The thing that interested me most about her was that here was a woman who was at the forefront of creating Hindutva music, who was willing to go to different parts of the country, who was willing to do these concerts where she can deliver Hindutva pop songs to a different audience, right? While being a woman, while sort of also brandishing her identity as a woman. So she does it in a very interesting way, where she claims to be a feminist, and then she says that she espouses feminist thoughts. But at the same time, her identity has been created in a very substantial manner by her father and her ex-husband. So there is the dichotomy of she thinking that she is someone who's extremely independent and who's a feminist, but then also allowing her father and her husband to really sort of take control and have immense authority over her identity as a Hindutva singer. I think a substantial part of the Hindu right-wing popular culture project rests on a very different historical spin given to events in the past, right? So a very important part of this project is to ensure that past events or historical figures who were antithetical to the Hindutva cause in some ways, or who don't show Hindutva in a good light, are often revisited and are repackaged and given a new spin, or figures who were critical of the Hindutva thought are then sort of given an absolute character makeover in a way that they are projected to be these demons, these villains who were anti-national and who were anti-Hindus. One of the prime examples of this is the image of Jawaharlal Nehru, our first prime minister, and we see that reiteration constantly in our political discourse, even by the BJP. So that part is known, but the part that is slightly lesser known is how the Hindu right wing revisits the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi as well. It's a very big part of the Hindutva project to really sort of try and create a very new legacy for Mahatma Gandhi, and the legacy doesn't look anywhere close to the legacy that you and I have been used to reading about, right? As a man of ahimsa, as a man of truth, that is the legacy that we've remembered him for. But in the Hindu right wing space, he is known as a man who was a Muslim appeaser, who sort of was happy to do everything he could for Pakistan, who didn't care about Hindus, and who happily presided over the slaughter of Hindus. So that's just some of the characterizations that Mahatma Gandhi has suffered, and it's not limited to Nehru or Gandhi. A series of historical characters and a series of historical events are often reoriented and re-looked at in the quest, in the Hindutva ideological quest to sort of adopt a history which is far more convenient to them than it is right now. What's interesting is the way Hindutva pop operates is that it doesn't always have to rely on the BJP to create a narrative and then for the narrative to flow down. So it's not always a top-down flow of narratives. It's also a bottom-up flow of narratives, right? Where a lot of the Hindutva pop culture that you see is talking about issues that are not nationally available for conversation on. So be it the law to control Muslim population, for instance, right? Officially, the state of India, the government of India will not be talking about this as an issue. But through pop culture, you're allowed to communicate to people, to your audiences, about the need for an issue like this or a need for a law like this. And through that, you continuously keep building consensus on a topic like this. So what happens is, over a period of time, there is a continuous sort of creation of popular culture around a subject like that. By the time it reaches a significant amount of people, and then it reaches the government of India, the ground has been laid for a step like that to be taken, right? So within the core constituencies of the government, the issue has been discussed, the issue has been understood, and now that the government is coming out with a measure, that constituencies already seeing merit in it. Whereas those who are out of the loop of this kind of popular culture will be taken by surprise when the government announces a law, for instance, say, to control the population of the country and to look at measures which are acting against a certain community and so on and so forth. This is just an example, but this is generally how things work. I mean, it could be anything from a law to ban, interfaith marriages, like we've seen in cases like UP and so many other states, where we've seen the government clamp down or make it extremely difficult for interfaith couples to marry each other. And again, things like this, the law comes much later, but there is ground mobilization that happens sometimes through popular culture, but some other times through different means before the law actually comes into place. So what you see is a very active mobilization that then ends up influencing government policy and lawmaking as well. I think the role of social media has been extremely critical. Not to suggest that the world of Hindutva pop culture would not have existed if not for social media, but I think social media has given it multiple benefits. One benefit, for instance, is that the reach has enhanced multifold. Right? Earlier, if you could go and play in a concert and reach maybe 5,000 people at one go, now the same concert can be performed in front of 5,000 people, but then it ends up reaching 5 million people on the internet through various different platforms. So you see that growth. The other interesting thing, and I think we've not looked at it as critically as we should, is the role of social media platforms and even commercially enticing these popular culture creators to continuously create the kind of hateful content they are creating. And the way they do this is by rewarding them with money, with advertising, and sort of also sometimes giving them trophies like YouTube does. YouTube will give you a trophy every time you reach a certain landmark. And a lot of these pop stars, display that trophy right behind them when they're talking. So it becomes a bit of a validation as well when they're displaying it in front of their audience. So what happens is the money that they get from platforms like YouTube, even Facebook and Instagram, is then pumped in to create more hateful content, right? And it ends up reaching more and more audiences. Sometimes they even use that money to advertise themselves on these platforms. So essentially what is happening is these platforms are telling the creators, here's your pass, you go ahead, you create more hateful content, we'll give you more money, we'll give you more space and visibility and even some awards. I think what we are going to see is an increasingly insidious marriage of Hindutva pop with electoral politics. And the way I see it, the role of popular culture, especially Hindutva popular culture, in shaping opinions and people's understanding of the political landscape is only going to increase. I've seen in the past, and I've reported in the book as well, how some of these popular culture creators and pop stars have been actively campaigning for the BJP, sometimes for the candidates, and at other times for the government as well as for the Prime Minister Modi himself. That is only going to increase because a lot of them see in 2024 a bit of an existential battle as well. This is not a battle they want to lose in any manner at all. So they will try their best to sort of canvas for the BJP, to mobilize support. Even if they don't do it directly, they will do it through the card of Hindutva, right? So they will campaign on issues which are connected to Hindutva. And what happens when they campaign on these grounds is that the people who are listening to those songs, those poems, or reading those books know exactly which party is campaigning for Hindutva as well, right? So they just have to add two and two together, where they say, okay, here is my favorite pop star telling me that I must vote for a party which supports a ban on cow slaughter, for instance, or a ban on interfaith marriages, for instance. And there's only one party doing all of this. So it organically then sort of transfers itself into support for the BJP and for Modi, for Yogi, and so on and so forth. We're only going to be seeing an increasing sign of such sort of support for each other. What we are also going to be seeing is the increasing use of popular culture forms, not just books, poetry, and music, but also forms like cinema. And we've already seen that in the past with movies like the Kashmir Files, the Kerala Story. We're seeing how increasingly propaganda is being used in the form of cinema as well, to sway people's opinions and to create more hate and more prejudice against each other. And my fear is that we're only going to see more and more of this in the coming few months.